Hi, everyone. This is Rob Packard from Medical Device Academy. And last Friday, so yesterday, July 28th, the FDA released the new fiscal year 2024 user fees. So these FDA user fees are normally released around August 1st. I thought I'd check on a whim on Friday to see if they were released early, and I searched Google. Google found them. I can't find them on the US FDA website, but I could find them in Google because it was posted on the Federal Register. So we've hosted it already on our website, but I thought I'd make a quick video explaining how that impacts your 510K costs. And because some things have changed over the last year, I thought it would be helpful to people to know what their 510K costs are overall, because there have been some minor modifications. So number one at the top of the list, your standard fee, $21,760. That's what the FDA charges for companies that don't have small business status. You have to apply for the small business status. The small business fee, if you apply for it and you have to reapply each year, it's $5,440. So that's over a $16,000 savings if you get small business status. That basically pays for anybody to prepare your 510K submission unless you're overpaying for preparation of a 510K. So now we're going to get into the details of what the costs are for preparing a 510K. And keep in mind, this is all based on fiscal year 2024, which begins October 1st. And as of October 1st, you have to use the FDA eStar templates. So that's why I put the logo up there for FDAeStar.com. That'll be our new website later on this fall. So first slide, there we go. How much does it cost? So there are three components to your cost. Number one, the most expensive part is the documentation and testing. You could basically round out all the other costs because that's where all your costs are going to be. Your documentation of all your validation that you're doing, that you do in-house, and your testing, and this includes preparing samples for your testing. So even if you have software as a medical device, in 2024, you're going to have to do cybersecurity testing. So not only do you have to do in-house testing for validation of your software and document all that, which could easily be $50,000 worth of documentation alone, let alone all the testing time and development that went into it. But then in addition to that, you have to prepare cybersecurity documentation, and you're going to have to outsource penetration testing unless your company is big enough to have independent teams that haven't worked on each other's projects. So unless you have somebody completely outside of the development team for your cybersecurity penetration testing, you'll have to outsource that testing. So something to keep in mind, you start these new projects, keep some people separate that know how to do penetration testing so you don't have to outsource that. But easily, even with these software as a medical device products, you could be at $250,000 for development. Even simple products could be that much when you look at all the testing costs. And what is the highest possible cost? There's almost no limit, but really it comes down to, do you need to do any clinical testing or not, or any animal testing or not? Not all medical devices require animal testing. Not all medical devices require human clinical testing. There's biocompatibility testing, which often involves small animals. And then we have larger animals like pigs that are often used for some of your safety studies before you get into human studies. Or if you're doing a hemostatic agent, that would be a pig study to make sure the pig stops bleeding when you create a wound in the liver or spleen, for instance. So those tests can easily be hundreds of thousands of dollars to get sufficient number of animals tested. And you might have to do side-by-side testing with a predicate. And if you do a human study, even for IVDs, it's hundreds of thousands. And for non-IVDs, implants, you could easily be looking at $1 million plus. And it depends on the number of subjects and how long those studies are. Is there any follow-up? Is there imaging? So there's a lot of variability. So if somebody just wants a number, every regulatory person, any good engineer is going to say it depends. It's not really an answer. So I'm giving you a range here, $250,000 to $1 million plus. And the high end depends on whether you have large animal testing for performance and human clinical testing for performance. Otherwise, it should be more in the hundreds of thousands. And it also depends on how much your device costs. Next, the submission preparation. Now, way back when, and when I say way back when, we're looking over 10 years ago now, I sat up on a stage with another consultant that did the same thing we do, except for he's also a lawyer. And he gave a very reasonable range, I thought. He said $25,000 to $100,000 is what we expect to charge for the total preparation, all the responses to the FDA in a 510K, including their pre-submissions. So that's what they came up with. And their pricing's gone up. It's been 10 years. Our pricing was lower at the time, but we weren't a law firm. We were small, and we're doing it as cheaply as possible to help out startup companies. That's who we specialize in helping. And we did a lot of them, so we could do them efficiently. We do even more now. We have 6 people doing this all the time. We're very quick at this. We're sending submissions to the FDA every single week. And our base fee is $17,500. You can also do it on an hourly basis. So if you don't have all the sections of 510K applicable, you have a software as a medical device, you might be able to get it down a lot cheaper if we are just doing a software as a medical device submission. But more complex submissions aren't going to be that base fee. If you need help with any protocols, if you need to do an SIR meeting and it takes extended time to address those submission and review issues, or you're trying a bundled submission where you're trying multiple predicates and multiple devices, these are going to be the situations where we're going to have to charge a little bit extra for the additional work on either protocols or a bundled submission or for multiple predicates. Or if you have a submission that requires a lot of, if a company doesn't listen to us and they don't do certain testing that's required, then they're going to have a much longer submission and review process. So we've capped our submission and review at 12 hours. So you can make the choice of, we want to submit it even though we're not done yet against our advice, but then you're going to have an hourly charge later when the submission and review process takes a lot longer to answer additional information requests from the FDA. The last fee is the user fee. So that's what we led with. This whole video was spurred by, hey, let's update it because the user fees have increased, but that's the lowest cost you have to worry about unless you're doing a standard fee 510K. So for most of our clients that are small business, you should be at $5,440. The submission preparation is $17,500. If you had a pre-sub, that would be $3,500, and I'll cover that later. And then the documentation testing is the most expensive. So that's the overall, what is the cost of a 510K for the different components. Now, what do you need to get small business status? Well, we actually have a page dedicated to that. It's Medical Device Academy /small-business-qualification. So if you just search for small business, you'll find it right away. You have to file your taxes for the current tax year. So if you're submitting your small business qualification now, it would be for 2022. Even in January, it would still be 2022 unless you have a weird fiscal year. For companies that submit after April 15th, I think it is, or April 1st, somewhere in there, then your small business filing would be for fiscal year 2023 data. You're going to need your organization ID, but we have a video about how to obtain the organization ID from your DFUF account when you create that, and it's free to create a DFUF account. And you have to complete FDA Form 3602 if you're a U.S. company. If you're a foreign business, you also have to fill out Form 3602A. Regardless whether you're U.S. or foreign, subsidiaries and parent companies, you have to submit those Form 3602s and 3602As as well. And all this is worth your time because it only takes a couple hours to do all the documentation for this, and you save $16,320. Some of the countries, you have trouble with getting the National Tax Authority to sign it. Sometimes they won't sign, date, and stamp it because they can't read it because it's not in their language. Japan, Mexico are a couple examples that we've run into problems with. If that's the case, document that. Send it into the FDA and explain to them, the National Tax Authority won't sign this. Here's some documentation from our accountant proving this is how much we make. So don't just give up. It's worth $16,000 to try a little bit harder because we've had some people be successful even though they couldn't get a signature and stamp. Okay, here's the table I created. It's now on the homepage of our website. It's on the user fee blog that I just posted just a few seconds ago, or minutes now. The FDA fiscal year 2024 user fees take effect October 1st of this year and go all the way till September 30th of next year. And you see all the user fees for all the submissions and the establishment registration is a significant increase. All the submission fees have gone up by 9.5%. The establishment registration fee has gone up by almost 18%. So normally in past years, we've seen like a 6% or 5% increase. Inflation hit the US hard last year, as it did for most of the world. And so you see a significant increase in the establishment registration, which is basically to pay the FDA inspectors to come inspect you. And they also figure into how many FDA inspections they need to do. They weren't able to do a lot of FDA inspections in the past due to COVID. They're catching up on that. So they need that for their budget to cover the inspectors. For the submission preparation, we have submission base fees or hourly fees. So if you want to do your submission entirely hourly, you want to do as much as you can and learn from the process and have us help you, we're happy to do that. Very few companies are willing to do that. They're like, no, we do it and we'll just give you the PDF and we're not going to give you anything else. That's not how we work. We involve you in the process. You can do as much as you wish and we can advise you. We'll do it on an hourly basis. But if you want a 510K base fee or a de novo base fee, we charge the same for both types of submissions. It's $17,500. For the pre-sub, it's $3,500. Now, with a pre-sub, if you don't have protocols ready, detailed protocols and detailed questions for the FDA that are specific to that topic you want to discuss, they're going to tell you, go see this guidance document, and we recommend you submit your detailed protocol with specific questions in a supplement. So you just wasted 75 days. Much better to come prepared with detailed protocols, whether it's, I just talked with a company on Friday. I said, look, the 4 areas that you need help with for this product are number 1, regulatory strategy. Number 2, they needed help with, what was the second area? There was non-clinical bench testing. There was clinical bench testing. I don't remember what the fourth area was human factors. So those are the 4 areas. Regulatory strategy, and it was a complex multi-version, like multiple configurations, multiple predicates. It was a complex device with a lot of functions and a lot of testing required. So the regulatory strategy was critical. Number 2, they had human factors requirements and they had more than one user group. So that means more than one protocol. You need a protocol and URRA for each user group. They also had non-clinical bench testing. Well, they had 4 major functions of this device. So I said, you probably want 4 major accuracy protocols that you're going to conduct on a benchtop to look for accuracy. And you ought to be asking questions about each of those, 1 question each at least. And then finally, they had 2 clinical studies that they had to conduct. So with 2 clinical studies, that's going to round it out to 10 questions. Your maximum is 4 topics and 10 questions. So that's how we came up with that specific recommendation to this company. But your pre-submissions nowadays, if you're going to create those protocols and you don't have the ability to create that in-house, you're going to have to hire somebody to do that. So you might have to pay a testing lab in advance to create the protocols because they don't do that for free for fear that you're going to take that protocol and give it to a cheaper lab. For the CRO or clinical research coordinator, you're going to have to pay them to develop the protocol, even though they're not ready to start the clinical study yet, and you don't have IDE approval for it. You also need to go through almost the entire process for human factors up to the point of protocol preparation to give the FDA a protocol, because they won't answer human factors protocol questions without the URRA as a reference. So the URRA, in September, we're going to be doing a 4-week webinar series all about how to do a use-related risk analysis. So if you have no idea what a URRA is, check out the December 2022 guidance document, and please sign up for our webinar in September. The last area that we had concerns about was this regulatory strategy. That might only take a couple hours of work, and that would normally be the kind of thing that we would do in a pre-submission preparation. But writing protocols, doing human factors work, and hiring a CRO and a testing lab, that's outside of the scope of a base fee for a pre-sub. And if you don't take our advice and don't do it the first time, now you're paying for 2 pre-subs, and it's taking 75 days for the first one. Then you have a delay while you prepare your supplement, and then you have another 75 days. The last part was pathway, predicate selection, and testing plan. For a lot of simple devices, we don't need to do this. It's really easy to say, oh, this is the regulatory pathway for your device. It's just like this predicate. We'll pick the most recent one. That's fine. And here's your testing plan because there's a guidance document. If that's the case, then we don't need to put that. We don't need to charge you for that. It can be maybe even during the 30-minute introductory meeting with you, and we'll include that in the pre-submission preparation. But if you have a complex device like I just described, yeah, we're going to probably need to spend a little bit of time on regulatory pathway, predicate selection, and testing plan. And for that company, just to get them started, we're spending 4 hours of work. And that's right around that $1,000 mark. So if you don't know what the pathway is going to be, or you have a complex submission, a bundled submission, multiple predicates, that's when you're going to need to think about hourly or that kind of a package from us. For the hourly consulting, a lot of people are like, well, they don't want to tell you what their rates are. We post our rates. They've been this way for quite a while. My rate is $350. Why is it the $350? Because I own the business and I'm working 80-hour weeks. If you look at my calendar and try to schedule a meeting with me, you'll see why it's $350 an hour. I get up at 6 and I work till midnight a lot of time. Here I am on a Saturday recording a webinar. Mary, Sharon, Bhumika, and Matthew, all of them are project managers. They've been working on projects for quite some time. Mary started with me right in the beginning in 2017 when I first started hiring employees. She's now a consulting partner. They're all at $275 an hour. Wandy, he started in January. He's staying at $200 an hour until he has 5 submissions successfully cleared. He has 2 already that he's worked on. One I helped him with, and the other one he did all by himself. I reviewed work, but very little help needed from me. Did a great job. He actually got interactive review, which I've never had. They always give me AI hold. About 98% of the submissions end up on AI hold. So he did a great job on his first submission. So those are the prices for our hourly consultants. We have, each person has different specialties. Matthew's specialty is human factors, but he also has a lot of cybersecurity labeling and software experience. He was actually acting quality manager for one of our clients for a while that does software as a medical device. Bhumika actually is a software developer and has been specializing in cybersecurity. Sharon has a lot of experiences, decades of experience on sterile devices that are used in hospitals. And she's helped a lot of clients with quality system implementation because she was director of quality. So she has that experience. Mary has worked on artificial intelligence projects, a lot of orthopedic products, some de novo submissions, really fantastic experience. And that's why she's consulting partner. And for our hourly consulting projects, you're going to see we ask for a 50% deposit with an 8-hour maximum of that deposit. We don't have a retainer agreement where you work down to $0 and then we send you another invoice. The reason why we do this is because we have had small startup companies, they've run out of money and go out of business. So when you specialize in this market, until you get to know the company and have some credit with them, you're going to say, oh, I think we want a deposit. So 50% deposit up to an 8-hour max. If we bill you monthly and you have about a $5,000 bill, that 8-hour max is not even going to cover the entire bill for the month. So we try to keep that reasonable. If you only have a 4-hour project, we'll only get asked for a 2-hour deposit. But most of the companies have more than 8 hours for the duration of the project. For testing costs, where does that $250,000 to $1 million plus go to? These are the bullets that you need to think about. And I think about them in this order right from the top of my head. Biocompatibility is first on my list. For a lot of devices, minimum is going to be about $15,000. If you have software as a medical device, $0. Sterilization and shelf life. If you have sterilization, it depends on the method of sterilization. But a lot of times with electronic devices that are non-sterile, we only have to have battery information about the shelf life of the battery for the manufacturer. So that could be $0. Or it could be very expensive with a device that has stability issues and has a lot of different sizes and configurations. You might have to do a lot of sterilization validation and a lot of shelf life testing. As I said before, software validation, the FDA released a new guidance on that. They want a little bit more documentation on the risk management side. For cybersecurity, they're asking for a lot more they're going to be posting a final guidance on cybersecurity that requires cybersecurity testing, like penetration testing, to be included in your pre-market submissions. Electrical safety and EMC testing has gotten insanely expensive. That's $50,000, $60,000 that we expect companies to be paying for that routinely. They have to do it sequentially, EMC first, and then electrical safety, or they run the risk of making changes to the device and repeating their electrical safety testing. In addition, the electrical safety testing requires at least formative human factors testing for the -1-6 testing. They also require software validation, though it's not as in-depth a review as the FDA does, and they require a complete risk management file. And I'm not even kidding here or exaggerating. I have received an 80-page checklist asking me on what page of your risk management file can we find this information. And a lot of sections will be not applicable, but you got to go through the 80 pages and figure out what's not applicable, what is, and what page it's on. So that's extensive amount of work. So you really need to work on software, human factors, and risk management before you can even start your electrical safety. And in parallel with those three, you're doing EMC testing. So this is not quick if you have an electromedical device. For the non-clinical bench performance testing, just about every single device has to have that. Human factors testing has gotten insanely expensive. The FDA has a draft guidance document now, but we're expecting a final guidance, and the requirements are extensive. It's costing some of our clients $100,000 to $300,000 to do the human factors testing, just the human factors testing. So unless you have a device that has the exact same user interface as the predicate device, or you have a device without any digital user interface like software and a display screen, you're probably going to have to include that in your cost estimates when you're projecting the cost of developing this new product. Animal performance testing, we try to avoid however we can, but some devices require that. And then human clinical performance testing is sometimes required as well, especially for de novos. So that's where all your testing costs are going. And you just go down that list and say which things are applicable, what things are not, and try to come up with estimates for them. But it depends on your device. We always say it depends, but you can go out there and get quotes while you are waiting those 75 days for the pre-sub meeting. So get your protocols in place, conduct your pre-submission meeting, and then get quotes. So by the time you have your pre-submission meeting, you can pull the trigger on something that you actually have a quote for. Now, if you don't have the funding yet, you only had enough funding to get yourself to the pre-sub, you can still get the quote, and now you have a quote and a response from the FDA. Now you're armed for a proper discussion with investors about how much you need. It won't be a guess. It'll be a confident number, and you'll have a much more solid idea of how long this is going to take. That's the presentation for today. If you want to email me any questions, you can call me. My cell phone number, which is not on the screen, is 802-258-1881. That's also my WhatsApp if you're international. And that Calendly link is how you can schedule a meeting with me. I hope that's helpful to everybody. And please put comments down the link below for this YouTube video. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, we'd very much appreciate it. And we'd be happy to get you a quote for our 510K. Have a great day. Bye-bye.